Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, everybody. The podcast about all nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today we're here to talk a little Worlds Beyond number. But before we jump into that, you guys know the drill. Just a couple quick announcements, a little quick coffee talk, as it were. We got some big old storms incoming, which I don't think they're like imminent, but I like to give a little warning just in case we get like a weird power outage or something.
Yeah.
But so we got that, potentially hanging over our heads, but we got Critical Role returning this week, which means we will be having our watch party this week on Thursday. I believe I actually haven't even looked ahead this much yet, but I think we'll be doing our live stream. Are you going to be around? Okay. Yeah. So that'll be Friday, back to normal there. And I guess that's it. Besides Worlds Beyond content, which we're in right now. New episode of that tomorrow, which I'm really excited for. But anything else really to chirp about?
I think that does it.
Yeah. Not too much on the agenda today, y'all. But yeah, so I mean, I guess without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. Okay, well, never mind. Awkward potential segue, but I'm just gonna reel it back in and we're just gonna keep going. All right, so actually, do you know the title? I did not write it down. The Sending. That makes a lot of sense.
Just Sending. If you put
Sending.
The, okay. Let's not get wild.
All right,
also, I think I'm hearing myself through.
Yeah, let me turn you down a little bit. Maybe say something again real quick.
Check.
Is that better?
Yeah, I don't hear it now.
Okay, cool. Well, you guys know the drill. We like to do a little recap of the episode before we jump into our discussion of it. So this is going to be episode 36 of Worlds Beyond number, Sending. And of course, if you're on the recap, you can find our full discussion linked down below. So we pick up in this episode with Suvi and her little cadre of wizards, name cloaks, Sworn being the most prominent one we know of, traveling to go and try and rescue Silver. Is the long and the short of it. And we left them basically coming across this foxhole, like this site of a previous battle where there are trenches dug, perhaps a scouting point, but it's abandoned and kind of destroyed at this point. When all of a sudden they hear this screeching noise. Something is charging at them, and it's these little monkey cat-like creatures, the very same ones that attacked Ursulon, if y'all will recall, back in Gauthmai. So we basically pick up and immediately are rolling initiative. And the way combat is handled in Worlds Beyond is very streamlined. It's very just the hits, and we'll talk about this when we get to our discussion. But similarly, I'm only going to hit the highlights for our recap of it here. But basically immediately one of Suvi's allies, who we come to find out is named Sully, just gets his jaw ripped off. He's not dead. I think we're told he has 1 hit point left, but he's just immediately ravaged. And then one of the Azure battalion that came with him is just immediately, excuse me,
easy.
Just had like a frog in my throat. You know what that?
Yeah, slow down, man.
I know. Hold on. I'm dying. Okay, I'm sorry about that, y'all. Just get choked up when I think about that poor Azure battalion member that, that just got immediately sniped. Excuse me. So they get taken out just off the rip. So it's just immediately chaos, and Suvi decides to cast Shatter and is able to hit all 3 of these little monkey creatures, but also decides to just get Sully in it as well, who again has his jaw ripped off and is currently fighting one of them. So she makes the tough call in order to hit all of them, and does. This kills one of the monkey creatures, kills Sully as well, and then damages the other 2 pretty heavily. It's at this point that Sworn yells because he notices something else, and there is this 18-foot tall ape that charges into the battle as well. And they say that it has a crest of Bahati carved in between its eyes, like a sigil. And it rushes in and attempts to just smash Sworn, but he is able to block it. One of the Azure battalion members takes out one of the remaining smaller monkeys, and then Suvi actually casts Inflict Wounds via Vandal, her little art demon, and kills the final smaller monkey. and also damages the huge one as well. Sworn tries to cast Hold Person on this massive ape, but it doesn't work. And instead, the ape picks up Sworn and just starts crushing him in its hand. And Brennan describes it very brutally. And he's not dead, but Sworn is not looking good. Three of Suvi's name-cloaked wizards then cast these like magical azure bolts at the gigantic ape. So there's like 9 arcane missiles basically coming at this guy. That kills the ape, but we find out that this is actually like a shapeshifter, a druid. So his ape form has died, but now he's full health as his like caster form, completely unharmed. But he gets up and immediately just tries to sprint away. But Sworn once again casts Hold Person, and this one works. So the guy like freezes midair and like falls from the trees basically. And so Suvi walks up to him, casts Inflict Wounds once more, and that kills him. And Sworn says, we're not out of the woods yet because like this forest is watching us. So we need to be like extra careful. But combat is over. They dig some graves for all of the bodies, including Sully, when there's a nice little moment between one of the Azure Battalion members with the fallen Azure Battalion member where they like re-give them this little like symbol. But so they kind of have their quick funeral, and we then cut to Suvi, who takes out the scroll of sending from her pack, the one that I guess I can't remember his name, but they gave it to her as a way to contact I want to say her mom, but I'm blanking on her.
Oh, yeah. The guy who stole the airship
Yeah,
left it
yeah.
in case there was emergency. Yeah.
But instead of calling for backup or extraction, she actually sends a message to Ame. So as she's doing this, we swap perspectives to Ame and Ursulon aboard this massive rock, who are flying toward Ursulon's home. The rock is currently very happy because it just ate a whale. But suddenly Ame has Suvi's message appear in her head. And Suvi says, Ame, the way we left things was bad. I don't have time for apologies yet, but for the love you bear me or any sense of duty, I need you both here at the base of Mount Korhai. Ame tells Ursulon about this message and says, hey, like, can we go and just go visit your family afterwards? And Ursulon is disappointed by this, but like hides that from Ame, and he says, I'll tell the rock. So Ursulon kind of climbs up to the neck of this massive bird and says, hey, can we go to Mount Korhai instead? And the rock asks, well, is there a way home for me there? And Ursulon says he doesn't know. And the rock then asks Ame, and we find out that the rock has a new nickname, thanks to Ame, called Firebringer, but she refers to him as Fifi. And he says, Ame, Witch of the World's Heart, if you promise to find me a way home, then we can go there. And Ame does. Ame then responds to Suvi's message and says, we are flying to you. Expect us in hours. Love, Ame. And that's where I'll hand it off to you, my friend.
Yeah. So we cut back over to Suvi. A number of things are happening. One, they inspect the body of the scout, and Brennan basically describes this being like a forward scout who was in charge of this station, this area of the forest. And additionally, this person has a smooth stone that almost, to me, sounded almost like a sending stone. But through, I think, an Arcana check, and I think actually Suvi does an identify spell on it, they come to find out that, first of all, that nature itself is bound to the forces of Gauthmai here. And that as they move through this forest, they need to be aware that, like, the plant life, vegetation, wildlife, and even the rocks themselves are the eyes and ears of Gauthmai. This stone, however, in particular, there are stones that are deep beneath the earth that sort of serve as a magical barrier, an alert system that lets the forces of Gauthmai know when someone is passing through, and that this stone essentially neutralizes that. It allows someone to move back and forth through that area. Suvi has a dispelling liquid that she got, I think, from the lieutenant in the previous fort, and works it into the stone, is able to break it up into a number of pieces for her party. And then also has Vandal essentially leave a path of ink so that Ame and Ursulon can eventually find them. Um, Also, she inspects Sworn, and Sworn, as Brennan describes, is pretty badly injured, has made like a makeshift splint. And though he's badly injured, he's able to continue on. And there's very much this kind of cool moment of him looking at Suvi, realizing that not necessarily like as a mentor, but as like a guardian of hers, like he gets to experience, like serve her and experience her mission in sort of this honorable way that he really appreciates. Meanwhile, The Rock and Ame and Ursulon approach. They note the uh, weird clouds that have been Brennan's pointed out the entirety of this episode. These like pinkish reddish clouds, which by the way, Lou Wilson, I think we mentioned in the previous episode, is very much, hey, y'all can just know this is not a good thing if Brendan keeps pointing this out. But The Rock does say that like there's something strange afoot. Is very untrusting of these mountains, of the Shroud Mountains, and specifically these clouds, and offers to sort of like set them down at the base of the mountain, and then to go to the top of the mountain and wait until Ame returns to make good on her bargain to help Firebringer get home. They're essentially dropped off. They follow the path, and they do in fact find Suvi and her friends. Ame announces herself. They realize that that the witch and the wild one have arrived, and I think even Sworn does like an inspection to make there's no magical like deceit or trickery afoot. But our party is reunited. They're back together again, and Suvi shares kind of what's happened so far, their mission to get to Absinthe. Ursulon points out like, oh, so that's our mission to rescue Silver. And it's a bit, I think, kind of interesting, like what's unsaid of, Ursulon's not super excited to be here to continue the efforts of the Citadel. But he is asked, I think, by Ame to speak to the wildlife and figure out like what is the safe passage through here? Like, how do we make it through here? He does speak to a very old tree, and the tree, recognizing him as a spirit, basically says, if you're going to navigate through these woods, go to the high places where there's pine trees, because that is the safest place. The birds don't dwell there. The animals aren't there. That would be your best bet for navigating through. And then meanwhile, speaks either him or Ame speaks to the horses and says basically like, hey, can you help us move carefully through here to navigate these woods, which the horses agreed to. All this said and done, around this moment as they're setting out, I think dawn has approached. They see Firebringer up on the mountainside, and then they see the appearance of a being of pure light that Brennan describes as brighter than the sun, and identifies this figure as a sorcerer of one of the high houses of Gauthmai. This bright being approaches Firebringer in the sky. There is some spell cast, and then Firebringer is gone, disappears essentially. And that is where our episode ends, episode 36 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, Sending. And if you're watching just the recap, we don't split these up. You're watching the recap. Let's get into the... we just split these up. What am I talking about? It's been a while.
We've considered maybe not, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm confused. But anyway, if you're watching just the recap, click the link and let's get into it.
Yeah. Man, what?
I think I forgot. I think I've been like on a kick of forgetting recaps here. So all of a sudden I'm like, wait, did I post this last recap? Which I'm sure I did, but maybe I didn't.
I think we have, but I don't know actually.
Let me see here. I don't think we have. Maybe we have.
Let's see.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I just
Rocco.
I just didn't post it for 35. And I'm on a bad streak. Okay.
Did we not? Oh, well.
Yeah,
we were thinking about not doing it anyway, so maybe it could just be our...
Don't ask what's happened to me in September, October, because it's not, apparently has not been good. All right. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt our segue there. Yeah, nice little short ep, about an hour.
Yeah, short ep. Shortest one in a while.
Yeah.
Which we had gotten spoiled.
Roots. Yeah, back to our roots of the short eps. you know?
Yeah. So I'm curious if, was that an outlier, or was maybe the last part of chapter 3 kind of an outlier? I'm curious to see
Mm,
how long tomorrow's episode is. But it also felt like a great, like, fantastic cliffhanger, like fantastic place to end the ep. So it might have been in service
yes.
of that a little bit too. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, man, that was I felt like I was reading a book when that happened.
Yeah.
I could feel myself like that being the end of a chapter and being like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
no. Um, but it felt like such a and I'm probably going to harp on this too much, but such a cool, I don't know the right terminology to use here, but like just like such a nice little narrative thing, because like you kind of on this high, or this like win of, we have, even though he's just being their fairy, for like, the rock's not going to come down there and help them
Right.
fight a battle, but like still you have this big as a castle, which I didn't realize it was that big until this episode, that the rock was like that gargantuan. But like you're kind of like, well, hey, like we befriended this thing, like things are going pretty good. And so like to really set the tone, to have that ally be wiped off the map, was like such a
Yeah.
cool like tone setter and moment, I thought.
What a display of power and like the
Yeah.
stakes here. Of like, the high houses of, Bahati. Oh, you control nightmares, cool. And then, a sorcerer shows up and just bamfs out. I'm assuming it was some kind of like teleportation. I mean, surely didn't just like incinerate, like disintegrate Firebringer, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I was wondering. At the end of my first listen, I was like, did he just kill Firebringer, or did he bamf him out? But then, so after listening to the fireside chat, I'm pretty sure it was like he teleported him away.
okay. I
Type
think it was
of,
like a banishment
yeah.
spell or something, would be my
Brennan,
guess.
I mean, I
Okay.
don't know if we should take this as canon or not, but Brennan was like joking about how like that wizard was just like having his morning coffee, and then just like looks out the window and is like, wait, that mountain's 3 times bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
And then just like zooms over there.
I should
Um,
probably I should probably deal with
mhm.
that. That's cool.
But like, and
Yeah.
again, this is that his comment is definitely not something that should be read into for like the canon of the world. But like in that hypothetical scenario, it made it seem like it was just like, not like one of the, like, I'm trying to think of the way to compare it. Like, what are the wizards called at the Citadel? Like the top ones.
Archwizards or
Yeah, like like whatever
archmage?
Silence is. Like, what is he?
Yeah, the archwizard. Archmage. It's the archmage.
Okay, yeah. The way he phrased it made it seem like that wizard wasn't like an archmage, but was just like one of the wizards. But
Yeah.
again, that's purely my own interpretation of the way he
I
said
no,
the
I
joke.
well, I didn't obviously listen to the fireside, but I mean, even in the episode, that was my impression of it, of like this is one of the high sorcerers, which if I'm like one of these name cloaks with Suvi, I'm like, are we sure? Like, I feel like this is
Yeah.
I don't like that. I
Yeah.
don't like that. I feel like
Can
this is a
we
pretty good
please call
sign.
for backup or an extraction?
Yeah. It's a good thing
Um,
Maddie's not there. Maddie
yeah.
would be having a hard time. I just know that. She'd
Yeah.
be in tears.
She probably would be gone after that first battle, actually. And rest in
Yeah.
peace to Sully, by the way.
Mhm.
Not a great way to go.
Yes, getting jaw ripped off and then shattered would
Yeah.
be not a great way to go.
Friendly
I also
fired.
like Subi. I like Subi being like, I know what I would want. What I would want to happen, and I'm like, I could just imagine Sully being like, okay, but I don't really want, you know. Anyway,
Another interesting thing that was brought up in the fireside was, would she have done that if it was sworn? And she
Mm,
said she would have, ultimately, just because like the way she clocked it was that like they have 1 HP, like, and we know there were no healers here. Like,
mm.
even in a best case scenario where like they survive, what does that mean now? We got to travel 3 days back to camp, whatever it was called, and
For
um,
Marlon.
yeah, and so she made the tough choice, which I'm impressed at her. I don't know the word, but like
Yeah.
commander level.
Suvi does a good job of showing, like, we never saw like the training of the Citadel.
Yeah.
We know how militaristic, I guess it is.
Yeah.
And
That's the word I was looking
Suvi does
for.
Suvi does a good job of, like, without having to talk about the training, like showing that yes, she has been trained here for years.
Yes.
Or rather, Aabria does a great job of like
Yes.
those subtle details about Suvi. I think it's a really good example of like a D&D player who really is in the mind of the character they've created.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I loved it's a very subtle detail, but
Yeah.
it's very thematically aligned with the details we've known to be true about the Citadel.
Yes. So you just put that way more. You just put that way better of what I was trying to say. And so I thought, even to that same point, the fact that it would have still been true with Sworn, even
Yeah.
more so, fleshes that out.
Yeah.
And
for
really,
sure.
all three of them, I feel like, are very good at what you just described about like making those instantaneous decisions that carry all the weight of the characterization, just like effortlessly.
Yeah.
Ursulon, especially in this episode, I really felt that with like the way he reacted to.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm really sorry. My wife's leaving with the kids, and I want to make sure she knows about
yeah,
these
yeah,
storms.
yeah,
Just to make sure.
yeah, yeah. You're
Sorry,
good.
1 second.
Um, uh, well, in the meantime, for the I don't know how many of you guys also listen to the fireside chats, but I assume if you're like a dedicated Worlds Beyond fan to like listen to us talk about it, you're probably almost certainly listening to them talk about it as well. And I think this actually wasn't this episode. Well, I'm getting off track here. The first thing I wanted to say was that like the entire fireside chat was just about how hot Sworn was, which I thought was hilarious. And I guess I'll actually wait till Blake gets back because I wanted to say something interesting about what Brennan said about how he intended to characterize Sworn. Um, but then I think it was like 2 fireside chats ago where they were talking about the nachos. And for those of you that know, so real quick, in one of the fireside chats recently, they were talking about, they spent like 20 minutes talking about it. Like nacho etiquette, like if you're at a table with friends, like, and you're sharing a plate of nachos, like which nacho you're supposed to go for and stuff. And it was hilarious. And it reminded me of like a conversation we would have.
Let me
But
think of
yeah,
that.
Lou and Brennan were saying like we should make a podcast about it, and Lou can describe the nacho etiquette, and then Brennan can describe like the psychology of the person that goes for each bite or something.
What's that? Tim, is it Tim Robbins? Not Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins, the actor.
No, I think it
Who's the
is.
comedian?
Yeah,
Is it Tim
yeah.
Robbins?
I think it is. I think
Okay.
it's like the I think you should leave
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, I think it's Tim Robbins.
No, Tim Robbins is the Shawshank Redemption guy.
Wait, no, but I think it is Tim Robbins. Tony Robbins
No.
is the
No,
speaker.
Tony Robbins is, yeah.
But I think it
It's
is
Tony
Tim
Robbins.
Robbins. Tim Robinson.
Okay. Yes, Tim Robinson. That's
There we
right.
go. Yeah.
It's definitely not Tim Robbins, though. No, the nacho skit, though, where he has the server come and be like, you can't. He's grown on me a lot, by the way. I
I
really
knew
like
you'd
his
like
stuff.
him. I think you just had to find the right skits.
It's because all I'd ever seen was him screaming at the camera.
Yeah.
And like it was like the same 3 skits. And I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
this is like, and seeing everything else, I'm like, this guy's really good. But besides the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry to step out for a second. I realized that my wife probably didn't know about this huge storm that's
Yeah.
coming. So I wanted to make sure she wasn't going on a journey with the kids or something.
Yeah, no
So
worries. No worries.
anyway,
What
what were we discussing?
I think we were just talking about, or the very last thing I said was just adding on to what you were saying about the way these players are so good at showcasing that deep characterization with very like subtle things. And I was saying that I thought Lou did a great job of that this episode with Ursulon and his like mannerisms.
There's some interesting nuance to that too of and we don't have to really get this might be like a better conversation for like the Friday stream, but this nuance of doing what your character would do while also being collaborative with the players.
Yes.
and or at least doing it in a way where like trust is maintained. Like we know Suvi and Ame have made decisions that have been polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Erika and Aabria have deep trust where it's not weird or awkward.
Right.
I think about like a typical D&D table. I know my wife and I have been in conversations where she's been like, "Hey, my character would do this, but I don't know what everyone else would want me to do." And so she's kind of navigating this like, I mean, I know what I would do, but I
Yeah.
don't really want to be. It's kind of like the person who like everyone goes into the cave and someone goes, "Well, my character doesn't like caves, so I'll just stay out here." You know, you're like, "You sure you don't want to go in the cave?" Like,
Yeah.
I don't do caves. You
Or
know, so you're like,
or doesn't do
okay.
cities.
Yeah, I don't do cities. All right, well, the next like 18 plot threads were all in the city, so you know. Then
Please come
suddenly
in
you're
the city.
designing, yeah, you're
Yeah.
designing these two different like bifurcating storylines of what
Yeah.
happened outside the city, you know. But anyway, that's it's all that to say. I think that's another great compliment to these people and how enjoyable they are to listen to. Which I was at a Halloween party on Saturday, a Halloween party after Halloween,
Mm,
and
classic.
I got into this conversation with this couple on podcasts that they love, and they were naming out some of their favorites. And I was like, "You got to listen to Wizard, Witch, and the Wild One, you know, Worlds Beyond Number." So I was hyping it up big time, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Well, we've listened to some actual play stuff," and I was like, "It's different. It's
Yeah.
just." They weren't saying it was in a negative way, but I
Yeah.
was like, "There's something about these people, the way it's produced by Taylor Moore, Brennan as the DM. Like, there's just such like a uniqueness to these three players."
Yeah. I wouldn't put it in the same category, honestly.
I don't think I would either.
Like
That's what I
even
was
though it
trying to
is technically
explain.
D&D, like it's so
Yeah,
different the way it's
it is.
handled. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
They say they check
anyway,
it out?
they did, but I mean, also at like a party where you meet a stranger, someone's not going to be like, "No, I'm okay."
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
So though I was at another party. I think I told this story where I was talking about my other podcast, and I was like, "Yeah, if you like, you know, entrepreneurship, you should check it out." And he goes, "I don't think I will." I go, "Okay, cool. Well, see ya."
Kudos to him for just telling it like it is, I
Yeah,
guess.
anyway.
That's hilarious.
So
Um
I'm gonna
and
go.
to this this kind of brings us back around cuz before this episode, I know we had talked about how it kind of is different from a typical D&D game where we were wondering maybe this next chapter is going to be two separate stories of what Suvi is up to and what Ame and Ursulon is up to. So I was not surprised because again, going back to classic D&D, like obviously the party's not going to be ultimately split, but I did think that was possible for this. But now the sending being sent to them, I honestly didn't expect that to happen. Like I didn't expect them to just show up that quickly in this episode. So I wonder if that, and not that this matters, but I do wonder if that was like at all above the table at all. Like we
Mm.
need to figure out a way to get back together, or if Brennan would have had two separate storylines and like it was just completely up to them.
I think I just trust these people so much that I believe every option was on the table. When I say trust, I mean that whatever they had decided to do, I would have been like, "All right, cool, let's do it."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna tell two different stories. Like, I'm all about it. Whether there was like an above the table conversation or not, I think I would assume probably Abria. Uh, this is definitely reaching, probably, but you know, longtime DM herself, she knows the value of getting the party back together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whether it was even discussed or not, I think Abria, it made sense perfectly through Suvi's eyes. And additionally, I think Abria just knows the value of getting the group back together.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense. I was also surprised in that, oh, like we just had a podcast episode talking about where this could go
Yeah.
and up back. So anyway,
Um
I'm kind of curious. I like how Ursulon is getting kind of in the limelight of always like the staunch supporter and like kind of putting their needs before his own. And this very subtle, like kind of unspoken thing of like, oh, so that's why we're here for silver. It just
yeah.
kind of like just maybe I was reading into it, but I just feel like Lou delivered it so well, and then I was like, what's not being said right now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's exactly what I was referring to a minute ago. Just I felt like
oh yeah,
is so good at
sorry,
that type of stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I can't remember if this was in the fire. I guess it would have had to have been in the fireside chat, but he was talking about Ursulon in that way and like having to make these sacrifices and like that's the price of honor, which he's never
Mhm.
had to pay before. Like he's always wanted to be honorable and like to help his friends, but he's never had like it's easy to say that when you don't really have anything that takes you away from, but now he
Mm,
has a home. He has
yeah.
family and he was excited to go back to them, but now his honor of
Mm,
protecting Suvi and being there for her is calling him away. And so like for the first time, he actually has to pay the price for that. And it was just like a really interesting
mm.
like thought process that he had going on, which made total sense. So yeah, I love right. You know, we joke about this a lot on Critical Role, but I think Ursulon is my favorite right now. I love what Lou is doing with him, and just kind of I don't know if bittersweet's the right word, but like just the way he's kind of getting what he wants, but it's
Yeah,
also I don't
yeah.
know.
They're all my favorite. I mean, I
Yeah.
love it. It's so good. Um, Getting back to the mission at hand. Um,
Oh,
this
or I didn't mean to cut you off.
you're good.
That gave me a thought. I just wanted to say because I don't think we've had our moment yet, but Taylor Moore this episode.
I knew you were gonna do that. I just knew you were about to say we haven't
uh,
had our Taylor Moore shout out.
there's two things specifically I want to talk about. First of all, the like the rock flight, the score
Yeah,
for that was just so good.
yeah.
Um, he does such a good job of transporting you into the scene. Um,
Mhm.
but that we can say that literally every episode. But so here's me saying it for this one. But the other thing I want to talk about is the combat, which it's not the first combat we've had, but it's one of like the first real combats we've had. The other one
Mm,
being like Ursulon under the derrick, but that really wasn't like
mhm.
And then the really was the one with the girl on the ship at the very start of the campaign, Captain Imlis, I think.
Mm,
Um, and I know you and I have talked about like how are they going to handle combat, and now I think we have a pretty good idea where they basically trim all the fat.
yeah,
And they talked about in the fireside that there was a lot of fat, like so that wasn't just as streamlined as the episode made it seem. People think about what they want to do on their turn, all that type of stuff.
yeah.
So I just thought that like the way I mean, you and I both know how D&D combat goes. The way
Oh
that
man, yeah,
Taylor was able to edit that into what we got was very
yeah,
impressive to me. Like it was all
yeah. I
killer, no
think,
filler.
yeah, I would say the version we got. I hadn't even thought about that. The version we got, I was extremely satisfied with. I thought it was very well done, very well edited, and it made for a very enjoyable, intense combat sequence.
Hmm.
Sound effects and all. I know Taylor doesn't do this probably, but I even thought about, those like sound design people on Instagram where they're like
Yeah, like
crunching
the Foley
celery or
guys.
something. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Taylor Moore's doing that. Maybe he is. I don't know, but all that to say, it's always like the right sound, I feel
Hmm.
like too, and just really elevates it. But uh not to repeat what you said, but for those listening who maybe you've never played D&D, combat does get very frankly cumbersome and tiresome because it's a very mechanical game and there's just a lot of moving parts, right? So the fact that he did edit that down into a very smooth, however set of minutes it was, is a great compliment to him. And I hope they do that for everything moving forward in that it keeps you in the world rather than um getting you out of it to deal with the mechanics, the noise of all the mechanics, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
I'm
And
glad you pointed that out.
one moment in particular that not only Taylor's sound design was great for, but Brennan's description of it was such a visceral moment, which classic Brennan. But the Sworn getting crushed and like the process of that being because of like his own shield magic turning against
Yeah.
him. Um, Again, just credit to Brennan for always being so verbose. But then that combined with the like the way
Yeah.
Taylor did it, it was like so ooh.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Brennan's incredibly clever and smart with like descriptions in general, but like that on the like in the moment, twist on just like, oh, you're being crushed. It
Yeah.
just, I don't know, made it so much more like palatable. It was like
Yeah.
it's very smart, very
Right.
cool. It actually reminded me of Calamity episode 3, where Pasha kills Lucretia Hollow. Sorry, spoilers for people.
Yeah.
But I think she was casting like Resilient Sphere or something, and
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
cast it on Lucretia, who was doing whatever death spell it was,
Yeah.
and then ends up getting like disintegrated or skelefied.
Yeah. That was
That was
brutal.
another cool Brennan moment. But there's something else I was gonna say. Oh, going back to Taylor Moore, I'm really liking. We mentioned this in our interview with him, but how like there's like a theme song for like Indri has a very nice kind of melancholy theme song
Yeah. Yeah.
attached to it. Well, and I know they're not in Galtmai, but this mission music, I said it last episode, it's very Elden Ring-esque, which I'm just now playing through. So it's vibing really well with me. But especially this episode, I'm just like, yes, I love it. Where's the soundtrack? Taylor, release the
Yes.
tape. I want to get it. I want to
Release the
download it,
tape.
and I want to use it for my D&D campaign. So
Yeah.
there you
It. We say it every time, but it's phenomenal. Like it really does. He's the fifth person at the table. How many? Wait.
go. Fifth, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Wait.
Yeah, because wait. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
counting so weird all of a sudden.
Yeah. I got really confused. I was like, he's the
I
fourth
was
person.
I was like, bro, totally fine. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh God, how many? And then I
No,
was like,
3
yes,
players. Brennan. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that'd be 4. So he's the
Goodness.
5th.
we figured it out.
Yeah. But yeah, and crazy that he like taught himself how to do this for this. Like that
Yeah.
still doesn't compute for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved the combat. I'm really excited to see like a full-fledged combat, like because this was as Brennan described a scout, like, and it still took out 2 of them. Like
Yeah.
it for lack of a better term, just if/when we get to like the first big boss encounter, I'm really interested to see how that's edited and how that's presented. I think it'll be really fun.
Interesting we've made it this far without one. I mean, there's been encounters, like something that has demanded
Right.
like long form. I mean, lengthier battles.
Right.
And there's going to be one for sure.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
I do think it's by design that this campaign is not combat heavy, but obviously there will still be moments of it,
Yeah.
Were you about to say something?
I was just like getting back to the mission at hand. Pressing deeper into Absinthe, they have their key, for lack of a better phrase, of getting past defenses.
That was really cool too.
And I love sort of the atmospheric feeling of like, hey, the forest is against you, basically. And also more data points around like how in over their heads is this group. Not just, I mean, I was already there before the end stinger, but then when the high sorcerer showed up, I was like, oh, okay, now you're really like, this is serious. This isn't like a scout. Like, this is a major spellcaster in the area, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, what are y'all gonna do?
Yeah. And I mean, like, what even is their plan? Like, we don't even know if Silver's all right, first of all. But like, that can't. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna be real. Like, Suvi, this feels like a fling. Like, I mean, do you even really know the guy? Like, I'm just wondering, how deep do we go for old Steel, or I mean, excuse me, Silver?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, because I mean, like, this is not even to mention the fact that it could be a weird trap, which we still don't.
Right.
We still don't even know, because like, we don't know if anyone else even got that transmission. But like, what's like the best case scenario here that that camp is still standing and they go in there and help back them up? Because like if they're POWs, is we trying to do like a jailbreak situation here? Like I don't even know what the plan is. I mean, I guess they don't know because they don't know what the situation is, but like I don't know. Feels like we don't have a big enough squad for this.
In true D&D form, they will figure out the plan when it is time to make the decision.
Yeah, true. Very
So,
true.
reminds me of a D&D session before my group was going into a big battle, and I was like, "Is there anything you guys want to do or talk about?" And they're like, "Nope."
We're good.
We go on in.
Don't want to
2 people
precast
died.
any spells or
Yeah.
Nope, we're good.
So, right.
Um,
But anyway,
I loved the I touched on it in a second, but the I don't even know what to call it, but the Sentry Stone passage mechanic.
yeah,
Thought that was a really clever way he did that, and a cool way to let Aabria get around it by
mhm,
because I thought that was going to be an issue, the fact that there was only one stone, but then just letting them use the liquid or whatever to split it into however many. Um, I just really liked that idea of like these deep underground stones that were like the invisible barrier. I'm curious what happens if you like what happens like are you just is it like an alarm or like are you cannot enter type of thing?
yeah.
And then I guess, and this is not meant to be nitpicky, but I guess Ursulan and Ame flew over it.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, "Well, wait, didn't they come later?" Or
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they flew over it. I don't know, but I think I feel like it was one of those things that like the concept made sense, but then as you mechanically like once Abria was like, "Can I just like walk through and then like hand it to the person behind me?"
Yeah.
It's when you start to realize that like, oh, this thing that makes sense for one scout now becomes very weird and clunky for multiple people.
Mhm.
And I wonder if Brennan with the whole Ursulan and Ame thing, if it was just easier just to because they would have figured out a way to deal with it,
Yeah.
but for the sake of the clunkiness of the item and the story, just not even maybe just to imply that that was
Yeah.
dealt with in
That's
some
kind of
way.
what I was thinking too. Like it wasn't like a I don't even yeah, never mind. But yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's and as a DM, you know, it's a plot device to create more intrigue and
Mm,
more atmosphere around the faction you're engaging with. It's not meant to be a puzzle, so to
right.
speak. I mean, I guess it is a puzzle in some way. And so that's why I also feel like it just makes more sense just to move past it because
Yeah.
it already served its intentional purpose, which was we're creating a lot of like more characterization around Gauthmai and what
Yeah.
they're capable of, you know. And the reason I call it a DM point is I think sometimes as DMs we get that backwards where it's like, sorry guys, you got to figure this out. And then it's like 2 hours later and the party's like, are we good? Like, did we get through the barrier? And nope, you messed it up by one
Yep.
person. Like, you know, so
Back to the drawing board.
yeah. But
But yeah, totally. I think that's a good insight too, because I myself could definitely see getting lost on something like that at times. But just a cool idea, I thought,
yeah.
and it really does do a great job of like world building. I feel like just thinking about all the systems they have in place, and like specifically, I don't know if it's fair to call him a druid. I think mechanically that's what that guy was, but a
Yeah.
shapeshifter or whatever.
Yeah.
And just even the thought in that like he only needs one stone because he's commanding all the animals and they're
Hmm.
chill to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So I just love like the little. I mean, it's kind of the same thing we talked about with the players showcasing subtle characterization with very simple things. Brennan does the
Yeah.
same with
Yeah.
his moves like that. Um, I wonder. I wonder what like level that guy was.
The scout,
Yeah, not that it matters, but because
I
like
guess
what
they're
we're
all
level
level.
4,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Probably level 4, maybe level 5. So I'd say probably level 4 or 5. The real question is what level is the sorcerer who
Yeah.
vamped out Firebringer?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, y'all be careful. This is Brennan does a good job of setting the stakes because I think about the previous chapter of the witches of the coven and like the moment when Grimoire like picked up the wizard and like shredded that person and then like drank their blood, and you're just like,
Yeah, that was
okay,
metal.
yeah, these people could kill you in a moment. So
100%.
similar vibe
Yeah.
with this chapter.
But I mean, I guess bright side, mechanically, that was probably banishment, which means Fifi's back home.
True. That's what I was
Hopefully.
thinking. Yeah.
Hopefully.
No, I think you're right. Which does the banishment spell work on Ursulon?
That's a good question.
That's what I was curious about.
I mean, I don't know, actually. Maybe it would work, but it wouldn't send him home. It would send him, to a random demiplane or whatever.
Let's see here.
I wonder if well, I'll hold that thought actually. And I know I'm just like saying things I like, which we get into at times, but another example of like very small things that I feel like I need a better like an iceberg. I think it's a good term for it. It's like a little thing, but there's a lot under the surface with it. That I thought Brennan did a great job on just I'm sure just an on the fly moment was that little moment between the Azure Battalion members of like the one returning that badge or whatever you want to call it. Like, obviously I think those weren't like 5-page documented backstory characters Brennan had, but he just created that little thing in the moment to give them so much depth. Like you instantly know that there was this relationship there, and that wasn't just red shirt fodder number 3. Like now it's like, oh gosh, like that was a whole person with a whole life, and it's just so easy. He's so good at like just doing that on the spot.
They were probably really good roommates or something. So
very close pen pals, at least.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say other than Brennan is just so good at moments like that, and it creates, like you said, it just creates a really good extra spice for the stew of D&D.
Do you spice? 100%, man.
Now that I've seen Legend of Vox Machina.
There you go. And then jumping around a little bit here, but I absolutely loved the old Wallow Root scene with the tree, with Ursulon speaking to the tree.
Yeah.
Speaking of like feeling like you're reading a book, that's the kind of vibe. Like I felt like I was in Lord of the Rings, like that, and the advice of like to avoid the birds or whatever, like stay high. It was just a whole really cool scene all around, and I love the touch of like the moss forming around Ursulon's hand or whatever.
Maybe this is too out of like theme of this game.
Yeah.
But I almost wondered, like, how do you know the tree is trustworthy? And like maybe there's too much of like a sacred bond there of like with the wild one, like it would never happen in this world. But I did wonder, it's a time of war. I just wonder, how do they know they're not being led astray?
That is a good point. I did just believe the tree unquestionably, but that's a good point. I do think based on what the tree said, it would be like a crazy like triple cross, because like he even said like good thing you asked me and not the birds, because the birds would have lied to you or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I can't remember the exact conversation, but I feel like Ursulon was very like respectful or like something, and that like the tree liked that or something.
I think the tree even said like you're the first person who's talked to me in like a long time or something. But
so hopefully the tree wasn't lying, but yeah, that's I mean we kind of talked about it a little bit, but yeah, like just speaking of them being in over their heads, even though they have this advice, like it seems like they're still just kind of screwed, because like the birds, the plants, everything's against them. So I'm very curious to see like what are they even doing from here? Like I guess walking up to that base, and I guess that they'll see what's going on there. But I don't feel good about it.
I mean, not to harp this point again, but again, I'm kind of like, the deeper they get here, I'm just like, all right, like if we're comfortable letting Sully die, like surely you as the Archmage apprentice, Suvi, and what Rasper took, like it seems like there's things more important than getting Silver back.
Yeah.
If they had navigated through here a little bit more quickly and easily, I would have been like, let's do it. Let's get this guy home. You know, the Martian. Let's bring him home.
Yeah.
But with like how treacherous this journey has been so far, I think about even in Fort Marlon, like the mishmash battalions of like who was still alive and just like how brutal it's all been. I wonder if there's a point that they realize like, hey, this is a little bit above our weight class. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do rescue him. I wonder though, is there a point where they realize let's cut what we've done and get back?
Yeah. And they don't even really have a good way to get out. Like previously, I was like, well, maybe they can just have Firebringer
Right.
hightail them out, but not anymore. So, yeah, I wonder if, again, we don't really know how much Steel knows, but like, I wonder if she might even somehow help them out. Like, I don't know, because the ship isn't even coming to them; it's going back to the base, but don't have a sending scroll. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Brennan's gonna, corner them into a TPK, obviously, but I'm curious about just how this is gonna unfold because.
Well, campaign's over.
Yeah.
Cut to you, Aabria. Your space adventure.
Well, this is the last chapter.
So,
for now.
Which on that, how many episodes have we done? 2 episodes or 3?
I think this is the second. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. Well, new episode tomorrow. Anything else you want to bring up about this episode?
I don't think so. I'll look over my notes really quick, but like you mentioned, short ep. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
But I think I touched on everything that I was wanting to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Tell your friends about Worlds Beyond Number. It is such a great show. And thank you guys for following the podcast. Let us know in the comments of the YouTube channel what you thought about the episode, and make sure you join the Discord because we talk about all of the episodes there as well.
Pop. Yeah. Only a few short hours until the next one. So hopefully I was gonna say maybe you'll hear from us again soon, but I don't know. We're pretty consistent with our schedule on these.
Yeah.
But so join the Discord and you can talk about it much sooner than our next discussion. But until then, y'all, thank you guys so much. Bye.